Welcome to the Gone Fishing Podcast, episode number 38. In today's episode, I'll be talking about finding hope when it's hard to see a way forward with Barby Ingle. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Gone Fishing Podcast. Join Ron Bouchard as he casts a wide net sharing his philosophy of life, business, and success, and goes fishing for wisdom in interviews with other entrepreneurs, authors, and thought leaders. You'll hear their stories of triumph and tribulation. If you're an aspiring entrepreneur trying to succeed outside the confines of the current of social expectation, bring the bait and join us for Gone Fishing.
Today's guest is a reality show personality, chronic pain educator, patient advocate, and president of the International Pain Foundation. She is also a motivational speaker and best-selling author of multiple books on the subject of chronic pain, which include The Pain Code, Walking Through the Minefield of the Health System, From Wheels to Heels, The I'm Possible Project, RSD and Me, and more. That's quite a list.
Yes.
She has been featured in more than 1,250 media. She has over 20 accolades to her name, including the 3-time winner of the WEGO Health Awards, You Are Our Hero Award from NAF. She's also been listed as one of the top 20 health influencers from Insider Magazine, and she's a recipient of the International Inspirational Luminary Award, and much more. Please welcome the Cheerleader of Hope, Barby Ingle. Hello, Barby. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have this time with you and to share with your listeners about my health journey, as well as ways that I think that we could improve the health system for everybody to get the care they need.
And thank you for being on our first video podcast. I'm a little nervous, as you know, this being the first video podcast. I'm much more comfortable with the audio podcasts. I have a lot more control over those. But I have to ask, really, your husband's name is Ken. Is that true?
It is absolutely true. We're Ken and Barbie. It's a great icebreaker. It gets people to remember us in advocacy. It gets people to watch us online and television shows, because they go Ken and Barbie and it clicks something in their brain. And because of that, they tune in to listen to what else we have to say, which we might be on the reality show for something silly because reality isn't real.
Right.
But it gets them interested in us, and then hopefully they'll go look us up and get the information that they need on chronic pain or health tips and tools that they need.
When I was doing the research for this episode, it certainly caught my eye. I said, "You've got to be kidding me." I did a double take. I said, "It can't be her husband's name," but apparently it is.
Yep.
Now, since the age of 4, you trained and performed as a cheerleader.
Yes.
You were involved in dance and gymnastic competitions until you eventually opened your own company. And you ended up landing your dream job at the Washington University as a head spirit coach.
Absolutely.
So you were living the life of your dreams at the time. Is that true?
It's absolutely true. And when I was 4, one of my first memories is telling my dad I was going to be a cheerleader the rest of my life. And he constantly told me, no, you have to have something else to fall back on. And he taught I have 3 siblings. He taught all of us to be entrepreneurial and to look for ways or things that need to be fixed in society and figure out a way to do it. And so I graduated college and in George Mason University in Virginia, and I jumped on a plane and went to go get married. And I actually, within that month, that first week, I walked by a high school nearby as I was exercising, and I saw these cheerleaders, and they were doing so bad that I said, that's what I need to do. I need to start a cheer and dance training company, because I've never seen cheerleaders so bad in my life. I grew up in Virginia, and competition and being the best you could be was what life was about. And so For me, seeing cheerleaders that needed help, I thought I could be the one to help them. And within a week of moving to Washington State, I opened up my own business and was in business, had clients right away, and started teaching all over the Western US and Canada. Living my absolute dream, taking life for granted, and getting the head coaching position at Washington State University. I was the first coach that they ever hired for the Spirit program, and I was in charge of the cheerleading squad, the dance team, the pep team, and the mascot program. And I actually, fun fact, I helped create Blitz, who is the Seahawks mascot. They didn't have a mascot, and one of the guys that I trained at Washington State became their first mascot, Blitz, and his name was Dave Stogdale. And I helped create the walk, the signature, and everything that still carries on to this day at the Seattle Seahawks.
So a little bit of legacy.
Yes. Yeah. So it was my absolute dream. And I knew from childhood that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life, was be a cheerleader.
But then something happened.
Yep.
You were diagnosed with endometriosis. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I was still coaching when I was diagnosed with endometriosis, and I was, again, following what the doctors told me to do. And I went through shots of medications. I went through 2 laparoscopies where they go through your belly button to cauterize any endometriosis. Endometriosis is only a female disease, and it's when the lining of our uterus grows outside of the uterus. So it can attach to other organs, to the lining of our abdomen. And for me, they kept giving me treatments, and my body didn't like them. It didn't react well to them. And the endometriosis grew stronger instead of dying down or weakening. And I ended up having to have a full hysterectomy. And I was not able to have children of my own because of the endometriosis. And at that point, I thought I conquered the world because I had a surgery and finally was out of the pain that I was in. Little did I know something worse was coming.
Right, in 2002.
Yes.
Right. You developed reflex sympathetic dystrophy, RSD. Is that right?
That is correct. And you said it very well. Most people don't know how to say that correctly, and you got it. So
and it's a progressive disease, right? It's a autoimmune condition that affects multiple systems in your body.
Exactly. And it's a rare disease. And doctors couldn't figure out what was going on with me. Reflex is anything in your body that's automatic, goes haywire. So my heart was involved, my swallowing, my tear ducts, being able to cry became difficult. And sympathetic is your nervous system. It's the fight flight system. And it feels like when that is kicked into high gear, like with RSD, it feels like someone put lighter fluid in your veins and caught you on fire. Some people have it in one region of their body. Some people have full body. Mine started in my face, neck, and shoulder, and it spread down to my arm. My whole arm curled up with dystonia. Then it jumped to my foot curled up, and then it went full body. And dystrophy is loss of muscle and bone. So I spent about 7 years in a wheelchair until I got the proper treatment. And just getting a diagnosis took 3 years. And the 43rd provider that I saw was the one who diagnosed me. So it was quite a journey to get through that.
So then how would you describe the medical care you received, having to go through 40 different doctors just to get answers?
Horrible. I was overtreated, undertreated, and mistreated. I had the doctor walk in the room and say, I know what you're trying to do and you're not going to get away with it. And he turned around and walked out. He never examined me. That was the only words he said to me. And then he put a full examination, a fake examination, into my medical records. I had medical providers, they would say her left side has this going on, and it was actually my right side. They would get my leg instead of my arm. I had trouble getting treatment. I had trouble getting providers to look at the whole of me. They would look at my heart if I went to a cardiologist, or my lungs at the lung specialist, but nobody was looking at my full body. I had one provider tell me if I didn't have surgery right away to remove my rib, I would die. And at that time, I was just doing whatever the doctors told me to do. I didn't know that I could stand up for myself. I could read and research and look into what I was going through. And doctor after doctor after doctor and physical therapist, I mean, the whole medical community let me down. And this happens, this isn't just me. My story is a mirror for millions of stories across the country and around the world of people not being able to get timely and proper care, and that they don't know that they can fire a doctor, that they can move on, that they don't have to get the option that that doctor's providing. Just because that doctor only offers you one thing doesn't mean that there's another doctor down the road that doesn't have something that will be better for you. It's your job and your responsibility as a patient to take care of yourself and to get a team around you that will work with you and have you be the chief of staff of your medical team to get the care that you need. And I didn't do that for the first 3 years. Then I started learning that I needed to speak up, and the only way to get the care I needed was to be a little bit forceful in a positive way, to say no when something didn't fit for me, and to do the research that I needed.
Yeah, and people need to speak up for themselves. You know my story, a little bit about my story, and I believed, I'm sure you did too, and when you're raised, that if you have a problem, you go to see a doctor. The doctors have the answers, and you don't really question that. That's what I call the current social expectation. We have as a society, we have expectations that are bred into us. So we have a problem, we go see the doctor. The doctor's one who's supposed to handle it. We're supposed to trust people who are in higher authority than us. But what we realize when we go through anything hard, that's all an illusion. It's all an illusion, and we have to trust us.
It's like reality TV. Reality TV isn't real. We film the same scene 5 or 6 times, and the producer lets you do it your way the first time, and by the 6th time, it's their way. When you go into the health field, it's an illusion, just exactly what you're saying. And we're taught as children that this is how the health system works, when it really shouldn't be. This health system is working exactly as designed, which is very poorly. And it's made for acute conditions, like you break your arm, you go to the ER, you get your bone set, you get a cast, and then maybe get some physical therapy afterwards. But if you have a chronic condition, or you try a treatment, like I got my rib taken out, it turned out to be no reason, and then that gave me complications. They weren't even held responsible. The providers are protected and not held responsible. The lawyers don't want to sue the providers when they do something wrong. It's really a reality program instead of a real program. And the only way that we can pull back that curtain is to speak up, ask questions, and be willing to walk out if it's not the care we need.
But this day and age, they're getting rid of questioning any science.
No,
what they call science.
We have to question. Well, science is real. It's
right.
The scientists and the interpreters and the media that twist what they want out of a particular set of data to make their point. And you really have to learn how to read the studies and find out, like for a durable medical equipment, there's no double-blind study. Okay, why is there not one? Is it because the company producing that piece of device doesn't want you to know that it actually only works in 5% of the people? That data exists. It's there. It's somewhere. They just don't ever publish it. And then they have the people that are participating in those trials sign non-disclosure agreements. And I've done trials myself. I've talked to patients that have been in trials, and they're like, I want to go public with my story, but I can't talk about what is happening to me because I signed this piece of paper.
Yeah.
So
and
the
people
data doesn't get out there.
People don't question authority. So they don't question the doctors. They say, well, I don't know anything about this, but you can find out. Get a second opinion at the very least.
Absolutely. And don't go to a doctor that the doctor you're asking for, that you need a second opinion on, knows. Go to a doctor or provider. It's not in their circle, because it will become an echo chamber.
Right. You need somebody who they disagree with, and you need to hear both sides. And that's what we were talking about earlier when we started this. I was talking about peer-reviewed research.
Yes.
Peer-reviewed research is just an echo chamber. Just because people share a point of view on a specific topic doesn't mean it's accurate. Are you familiar with Dr. Bruce Lipton?
I am not.
So he's a cell biologist, and he was teaching in medical schools. He wrote a book, The Biology of Belief. And what he did was he did a research project. He actually went to the lab and did a study on what he had known based on peer-reviewed research and had been teaching. But he only learned it in medical school. He had never done it himself. So he went to go do the experiment, and the experiment didn't come out any way like he had learned. So he started questioning it with all the doctors. What's going on here? I just did this experiment 6 times and it didn't come out the way that I've been taught that it was supposed to come out. And they said, yeah, we know. But because there was a major, the Human Genome Project was hinging on this research, they don't want to talk about it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that happens. There is some great clinical trials out there, and I've participated in some myself, but you have to stop and look, where's the money coming from for this trial? Where is the marketing coming from? How are they marketing it? To who and how? Are they making the participants sign an NDA? That's something that should be known. And also, are they kicking people out of the trials? A lot of times, trials that I've seen the behind the scenes of, they will say only people with this condition that's mild can participate in the study. You're too severe of a case. Or as soon as the patient is showing negative side effects of a particular treatment, they will kick them out of the study so that they don't need to include them in the final results of the study. And so it really helps to see how many people started the study, how many people finished the study to completion, and know why they kick people out of the studies so that they don't have to put that information out to the public.
And we need to discern truth a little bit more. In our culture, we're not taught to look for truth. We're looked to accept somebody else's altered reality.
Absolutely.
And like you were just saying about the reality shows,
Yes.
people probably believe, there's a certain number of people who believe that's reality, it's spontaneous.
Absolutely. And I've done multiple reality shows. I did one on TLC, on the Weather Channel. They had one called Brainstormers that I was a part of. And those shows are filmed, and there's a seed of truth to every scene, but how they act it out is done multiple times, and they do multiple camera angles. And there's a producer sitting there with a script book that is writing down what you say, and then they make it better. And for the one that we did for TLC, by the end of the week, I felt like I was a stupid person and that I needed someone to sit there and tell me what words I should be saying. It was a fun project to participate in, and I got paid to do the show, but it wasn't, the seed of truth was there, but it wasn't actually the real of how we really live our lives.
But that's how we are all programmed. From early on, we're told what to do. We're told what to think, we're told what to say, and we're programmed.
Yes.
That's what I call the current social expectation again.
Yep.
We are given programs by those who raise us, usually when we're young, by our parents and by our relatives. And then as we get older, through the school system, through the churches, and the media. And we start learning things that may or may not be true. In fact, according to Dr. Bruce Lipton, he believes that 72% of what the average person believes is false. But the big problem is when we go off on our own, we never really go off on our own because we rely on other people to think for us. So we look for jobs where we have a boss. The boss tells us what to do. We're not taught to be entrepreneurs. We're not taught to go out there and think for ourselves and to use our own God-given gifts to create a business.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, one of the benefits of growing up with my mom and dad was that they pushed free thinking and entrepreneurship and showed us in their actions how these are beneficial to our life. My mom was a colonel in the Army and was the head of nursing at Walter Reed. And my dad served in the military, and then he worked as a civilian for the military. And it really showed us the skills that we needed in life, but it also showed us that we had to question. He would say, in the Army, if somebody comes to us with a request, because he was in logistics, he would say, We tell about 80% of the people no, and only about 20% of those people come back and ask for the thing that they thought they needed. The other 80% don't ever come back. And so we saved a lot of money, time, effort, and energy by just saying no, not even checking to see if we need this thing. That's how our military is making decisions. Everything's no. And a lot of times in healthcare, the insurance companies are that voice for us. They say no, and then you say, but wait, I had a procedure that if they told me it was going to cost $18,000, it cost $114,000. But I went in a wheelchair and I walked out 7 days later. So it was worth it. But I wrote to my insurance company who said, no, they would not help me pay for this. And I had to do fundraisers to come up with the money to get this treatment. And afterwards they saw that it worked, and then they were willing to pay for it. And it's just interesting how the insurance companies work that same way that the military leadership officers are working. They say no. And then if you come back and you say, but I really need this, then they'll go, oh, okay, then he really needs this, or she really needs this. And then they'll give it to you. But most people, because of societal stigmas and how we're raised, never come back and ask again.
Right. I was going to say, nobody's going to advocate for themselves, and they know it.
And they know it. And that's how it's run. That's our military. And then that's also our healthcare system.
So tell me this, you were living the life of your dreams.
Yes.
I can't even imagine what that's like working for a college football team.
Yes.
And being a head spirit coach, and then going from that reality to in a wheelchair.
Yeah. I said 8 seconds changed my life.
So
yeah.
How did you find hope during those times when it was hard to see a way forward? That's what I wanted the episode to be about, because I think we are really good at complaining. And you had the whole world on your shoulders. So how did you do that?
Well, in cheerleading, we are taught to keep cheering even if your team is losing 50-0. So I had a little bit of help in that realm, just with the training that I had practiced most of my life. And from age 4 to 29 when I developed RSD. And so I had hope in me, because you are taught to smile. My dad would say, how are you down there on the field smiling when your team is losing so badly? And it's like, because that's what you're supposed to do on a first down, or, that's you until the game is over, it's not over. You keep cheering. So I had that ingrained in me, but I also had hope through my spirituality and through knowing that Jesus put me on earth for a purpose. And I thought that my purpose was cheerleading, and it turned out that it was. It just wasn't the same cheerleading that I thought of that we have here on our earthly opportunities. It was to be a cheerleader of hope, and to be a cheerleader of life and possibilities, to show people that we are here on earth. We all have a purpose. My purpose was to be a mental cheerleader, not a physical cheerleader. And having that happen to me and having my life change in those 8 seconds showed me that I was on the right path with my thinking of being a cheerleader. I was just doing it completely wrong. And God put a boulder in front of me. He was dropping little pebbles along the way of my life. And then it was like, listen, you are not paying attention. You need to pay attention. He dropped that boulder, and I lost a lot of hope, but I had a glimmer of hope in me, and kept practicing at hope and having positivity despite what I was facing. And through that, just like I got through those games where we were losing so badly, I got through the worst times because I had a small spark or glimmer of hope. And that is what got me through. And the hope will grow as you grow, and as you take step after step. Just take the next step. I say moving forward, always forward. And we're not trying to go back. We're not trying to change anything in our past. Anything that happens is there for a purpose, to teach us a lesson or be a gift. And you can't always see it in the moment. I'm not saying I lost a marriage, I lost my house, I lost my job, I lost my company. at one point I was on food stamps, and I literally felt like I lost me. And I had to use that spark of hope to ignite something that could keep me moving forward and building a whole new life. And my life is different. It'll never be the same as it was before because of my physical limitations. But that does not mean that I can't live a life that is full of purpose, hope, and light.
What you just said encompasses so much of what as you're speaking, I'm going through my mind, oh, I could talk about this and talk about this, because I'm actually starting a series probably in a couple of weeks about life purpose. And that when we find our life purpose, a light goes on. And it's not the purpose we think it is necessarily, but it's based on 4 different ingredients. And you just mentioned 2 of them eloquently. So one of them is that you have to have experiences in life that propel you into having the ingredients. So there's a saying that tea bag is only good or strong enough it's been through some hot water. So you have to have that strength building exercise, those experiences in your life that give you the hot water you need to become strong. And then you need the calling. And I think you need both of those. There are 2 other ones, which is you need lots of your design, the way you were designed is one of them, and you have passion. So you have those 4 ingredients go together to really work on your life purpose. And I think you have all of them. But
thank you.
I think that, and I'm actually fascinated by the topic of life purpose, because I think that we're given a call. And you said I knew my life purpose was a cheerleader, just not the cheerleader I thought it was.
Yes. And I think that everybody has a purpose, and some people take longer to find their purpose. I just remember always having my purpose and knowing my purpose. Although, like you said, I didn't know what exactly cheerleader meant to Jesus. Yeah. I just knew that was my calling, and it took me a while to figure that out. And know that if you're listening and you haven't found your purpose yet, that you can still find your purpose. Stop, pay attention to the signs in your life. And what you said is so right on. If you are thinking that life should be easy because you're doing all the right things, that's not how we were designed.
No.
Life is going to be hard. Good things happen to bad people, and bad things happen to good people. And that is just part of living in this world. If it's hard to accomplish something, know that the reward will be great, and that you might need to pay attention and figure out, am I on the right path to get to my purpose? One of the things I learned in getting so chronically ill was that there's a million ways to accomplish something. And for instance, I grew up with a learning disability. My elementary school principal told me I would never graduate high school. Don't even think about college. And I was the first one in my family to graduate in 4 years from college. So it just because somebody else doesn't see your purpose or tries to knock you off track, it doesn't mean that that's not your purpose. And there's a million ways to get there. Find another way. If that's really your purpose and you need to go around the rock instead of under the rock that's sitting in front of you, you can do it. You just have to choose to do it. And it might be hard. That's life.
Yeah, I did a podcast 2 weeks ago called Pushing Boulders. So it's funny you say that. And it actually talks about we need to be able to push the boulder. And sometimes the boulder gets really heavy and it slips.
So let go of it. Let it sit there and find another way.
Right. But most of us end up at the bottom of the hill sitting on the boulder because we give up too easy. Rather than pushing the boulder, we need to gain positive momentum. We need to push the boulder, and push the boulder. Sometimes God tells us just to push the boulder. Our assignment is to push the boulder, not to move the boulder, but to push against the boulder.
Yes. And
he will move it. But we never spend enough time pushing against the boulder to realize how strong we really are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, you say God will help you move the boulder. Having that trust that God will help you move the boulder. When I was first sick, I would accept everybody's guilt and anxiety. Well, we wanted you to do this and we wanted you to do that, and you're not doing it this way. And I had to stop and say, that's your guilt. That's not my guilt. I'm doing the things that I know I can do, and I'm doing them to the best of my ability. I felt like I was pushing the boulder, but it wasn't necessarily moving. And that's because I was allowing other people to give me guilt. As soon as I started taking the guilt, and sometimes even I'll pretend to like grab the guilt off my chest and go, here you go, here's your guilt back. You can have that back because I'm not going to accept it. That's when I could trust that, hey, God's with me. We've got this. He's going to help me push on this boulder, and we will get movement. We will achieve whatever it is that I'm supposed to achieve. And sometimes when you're going through it, you say, what's the purpose of what I'm going through? How does it fit into the big picture? But then 6 months down the road, you're like, you know what? That was really hard to go through. But if I didn't go through it, I wouldn't be here today in this moment to have this experience and this moment in life. You would have been still in the back trying to push the boulder by yourself. Let God help you push that boulder.
Right. And you wouldn't have developed the muscle that you gained from pushing the boulder.
Right. To have the strength to do
Yes.
what you were being built to and created to do.
Right. And I also, one of the things that I wanted to bring up is there are 3 places we can live in this world. We can live in the Sargasso Sea, which is what I call the Sea of Lost Ships. And it's literally, if you go off the coast of the United States, there's a sea called the Sargasso Sea. And they call it the Sea of Lost Ships because ships would get in and not get out. And the primary reason is the Sargasso Sea has no current, so there's nothing pulling the ship, and there's no wind, so there's nothing pushing the ship. The only way you get out of the Sargasso Sea is to get the oars out and do the work. Surrounding the Sargasso Sea is a set of currents, a set of drift currents, to be more specific, what I call the drift currents of social expectation. And those currents drag you through life, round and round and round. You have movement. You think that you're going through life and you're progressing, but you're not. You're going in a circle. You're just going round and round and round. It's like a hamster on a wheel.
Yes.
And then the third place you can live is in the open ocean. Now, the difference is Sargasso Sea is full of people who have resigned from life. They have very fatalistic beliefs and they've given up. They stop pushing the rock. The difference is they have no love for themselves. They don't care for themselves anymore. They certainly don't love anybody else, and they have zero hope. If you give them love and you give them hope, they move. They move into the Sargasso Sea. I mean, to the current of social expectation.
Yes.
And that's what gives them the hope to go round and round and round and round in circles. But that even is not enough. Hope alone just makes you go around in circles. It gives you the energy to move, but it's not what you need. The last thing you need is faith. You need faith in yourself and in a higher power, and that gives you the ability to go out to the open ocean, face your fears, and that's where everything you ever wanted is. And so faith, hope, and love is not just a story in the Bible. It is a real lesson that we need to learn so that we all can get out in the middle of the ocean, and most people, 95%, never get out there.
Yeah. I've never lived in the sea, but I was living in the drift.
Yeah.
I had the hope. But once I had my moment and that boulder was placed before me, that's when I got the faith. And I always thought I was spiritual, but I was just in the drift.
Yep.
And when I accepted it and I started having conversations with Jesus and saying, help me through this, and asking for that hope and help, and had the faith that he's with me through this, that's when I started living. And that's when I got out into the ocean and started really understanding the world and seeing all of the things that I was missing by sitting in that drift.
Right. It's like the story of Jesus when he's walking on water. He comes up and Peter sees him, and he asks Peter to step out. Peter had to step out in faith.
Yes.
If you don't step out in faith and know that you're going to be okay because God's got you, you're going to stay inside the drift current of social expectation, thinking things are going to change. You could have belief in God, but you got to trust in God. You have to have that faith.
Absolutely.
So since then, you've been advocating for patients around the globe, which have earned you 20 accommodations. What advice would you give people struggling with medical problems of their own?
I would say find out everything you can about your condition and start paying attention to those echo chambers and picking out what actually makes sense to you. Question it. Question authority. I would say, and this is going to sound simple, but drink more water. You know, we need to hydrate, and we need to be ready to move on, to accept what we can in life. Know that there is hope and there is help if you reach out and you seek hope and help. Hope being God, and help being the resources that He's provided here on earth through other people and other opportunities and tools that are here. Or if you don't see that, use God to help create a tool that will help you, and know that you can make it through, and you will not leave earth until you fulfilled your purpose. So continue to fulfill your purpose in the best way you can every day, and don't feel the guilt if you have a bad day or a bad moment and you have to take the time to stop and take care of yourself and your well-being, because God does want us to work on ourselves to be the best we can be, to live in His light.
Yes. Anything else you would like to add?
Hope is true. I know a lot of people will say, no, this lady's talking about hope, and I really don't have it, but know that hope is true, and that it is there. Even if you have the smallest glimmer, that's enough to spark a forest fire, to do the things that you need to do. Just get up and start being a human doer instead of just a human beer.
Yeah. And Desmond Tutu said, hope is being able to see that there is light despite all the darkness.
There you go.
Well, yeah. Thank you, Barbie, very much for being on today. Barbie, where can people find out more about you?
You can find more about me on social medias. Just look up my name, Barby Ingle, and Barbie is with a Y, just like Mickey Mouse. And then if they want information about chronic pain or the tips, tools, and resources available through International Pain Foundation, they can go to internationalpain.org.
And you can also find out more about Barbie by following the links in the show notes of today's episode.
Very good. And can I ask one thing of your audience?
Sure.
If you are listening to this, please right now, like, subscribe, leave a review, and let everybody know that this is an awesome podcast that other people should be listening to, and that Ron has great information for all of you, and that you are appreciating him. That is what you can do for him. So please do that.
Well, thank you very much. And remember, life is an ocean, a strong boat your foundation. If you want to succeed, identify a harbor, sail outside the confines of the drift currents of social expectation, and let's go fishing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've reached the end of another episode of the Gone Fishing Podcast. Connect with us at www.waypointmastermind.com, where you can sign up for our newsletter to receive our free tools and resources. This podcast has been brought to you by Waypoint Mastermind. Personal growth and support through collaboration with a community of like-minded achievers. See you in the next episode.